let's say 45 or 50 under. For a lot of folks, I think the first time you laid your eyes on an Apple computer, it was likely an Apple II, probably an Apple IIe, and it was in a public school classroom in the 80s. That wasn't a coincidence, was it?
Well, it wasn't a coincidence. My God, when we developed these, my reason for actually building those early Apple computers, Steve Jobs was off in another state. He wasn't around at all. But I was inspired by people that met in a club, and they were led by actually professors from Stanford and Berkeley, espousing the social good that we could do if we all had computers. And most of them weren't engineers and builders like myself, but they were talking about how one person could type a message in through a modem into a big computer and store it. And then over an hour, 100 other people could maybe phone into that computer and get the message. 100 people in 1 hour. Whoa, that was Superman stuff, you know, in those days. And we talked about education, that a student would be given a problem like homework. And today, you get homework, when do you find out if it's right or wrong? The next day in class. Okay, well, if your dog poops on the floor, you don't hold it over the spot and whack it on the head 12 hours later, do you? Immediacy of you know, computers were going to be the solution. Computers were going to instantly tell you if you were right or wrong, and learning would be much better. And it's hard to tell if we've really made any steps in that direction for reality. But boy, that was an inspirational force in my life. When we started Apple, no schools could afford our computers, but I would take them down to local schools and show them to teachers and administrators and show them what was coming and what computers could do. It was just too expensive yet. And then there was, of course, the program initiated by Steve Jobs to give every computer in the state of California, every school, a computer. Really notable. However, there was a state law that basically it cost Apple no money. So the state really paid for it. And Steve was trying to get the federal government to pass a law for 1 year for the whole country, and we could give us a computer to every school in the country because it would be like for free, you know. So it wasn't all that pure, but it sure did the job. Boy, we were, yeah, teachers loved it. But remember, we were way ahead of the competition when we started Apple. I mean, color wasn't going to be seen in other computers for, you know, a year and a half. I mean, figuring out how to do color for $1 instead of $1,000. This was like big, we were bringing some big advances to computers.
Okay. Is there anything you know now you really, really wished you knew then, and would it have changed the way you approached your work at all?
Probably, but I don't like to think about it. I don't like to think that, oh, knowing what we know today, what could I have done? Well, that's not really fair. Anybody could make up things, and you're not sure. All I know is you've got to rely on your guide, the best knowledge you have, the best abilities you have. You've got to think things out. You've got to try to be cleverer than anyone else and build things well. Use your brain. And I know that every step of the process, everything I did in technology, used my brain the right way. I made the decisions for my reasons, and I believed in them and know what they were, and my brain was working. So they were all right. So I don't look back and say, oh, there's some things I wish were different, or I wish I had done differently. And if you're saying, what do I know today that I might have, I wish I knew back then? I don't know. You know, I don't know how to find the right marriage partnership, maybe. It took me a while. I don't, but yeah, as far as technology goes, I don't know. Foreseeing that the internet was coming might have been one of those things, but then what would I have done differently? To tell you the truth, I can't go back and think. We were just building the very best machines. We couldn't really even foresee what kind of machine you had to build once you had an internet or broadband. My God. So a lot of these things were foreign to us. When we started Apple, we didn't think computers would ever get to the point they'd have enough memory to store a song, music, you know, and much less a movie. And now you get a little card and you have 50 movies on one little tiny card.
Let's shift. Let's go out of sequence here. You mentioned music. We're going to talk a little bit about disruptive technologies. Certainly what you guys were doing in the 70s and 80s would today be considered disruptive to the normal course of business. I want to talk a little bit about your thoughts on companies, industries. You've seen handle technology disruptions well, on the other hand, not so well. Let's talk about music, iPods, and iTunes. How well or not well did the music industry handle the disruptive technology?
Wow. Very hard to say. It seems like the internet came along and it was the publishing medium of all time. and everybody wanted to publish something. Bloggers could get on, and little columnists were on the internet. It was just open to everyone. And yet the existing publishing sources, which were the music studios and the movie studios and a few others, kind of avoided it. Newspapers, they said, oh no, we don't want to, this new media kind of disrupts the way we do business now. We just want to keep turning the crank and making our money. And it was strange that they opposed it. It was so long. I thought, my gosh, the internet's here, Napster's here, I could get a song and I wouldn't do anything illegal. I wouldn't take a song, but I would go online and I would spend an hour trying to get a song that I remember from my past, and there was no way to find a way to buy it. And this was 10 years after the internet had been around or something, and it was just seemed so wrong, yeah. So of course those industries got shook up a bit, thank heavens for Steve Jobs and iTunes, finding the greatest music distribution over the internet, and we took #1 position with iTunes, and really that started changing the world in the way that it had to go. But it took somebody like Steve Jobs convincing the studios to go with it at first, $1 a song instead of albums. But I don't know. A lot of things that we had in our past were really good. When you have disruption, you say, oh my gosh, newspapers were a better way to get through and sort the news in my head. And these things, but the trouble is, these things all get passed by, and you can't tell the modern generation, oh, we had a nicer world back then because we had all these paper newspapers that got thrown on your porch every morning.
I mentioned my son recently. I was reading a Sunday paper, and I said, I hate the way it makes my hands black. And he had no idea what I was talking about. No idea.
Well, pay attention to the kids. I mean, Steve Jobs said this a lot, and I did too. I always want to stay young and stay in touch with the young people because they have sort of the clues as to where the world's going to go next.
What's on your playlist right now?
What?
What's on your playlist right now?
My playlist? I couldn't even describe it. It's so huge. It's just so many thousands of songs. I'm sorry, I don't have. I can't put it in a simple category.
Fair enough.
A lot of Americana, a lot of songs that have stories, and I don't know, a lot of songs that grab me emotionally. You relate to the anguish and the grief of the singer. I'm sensitive. I cry easy. Movies and songs, I swear.
Movies and songs. Some of what you think might have been the most important lessons you learned over the course of developing a business that are appropriate today and you might want to share with the folks here?
Wow. Yeah, you're starting a business, you're going to build some products, hardware, software these days oftentimes, and you come up with a plan. I want to build something to make money. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to have a successful company and get this idea to the world. And a lot of people start writing down ideas and raising money based on it. Once we have the money, we'll hire the engineers, and I just go back into my own life. Find some really competent engineers that build things, that think out of the box, that have created some good stuff. Engineering involves such careful thinking and problem solving and trying to fix things that are wrong, that engineers are very good at looking at a plan for a product, going home, maybe resting on it for a night or a week, and coming up with a lot of better ideas than you would have come up on as your own just coming from business school. So you really need the business and the engineering type aspects together. The scientific, that's one of the big things. And also, don't be afraid to build things that aren't worth very much. Maybe they're just for fun. Apps on a phone, just for fun, they're free, you're not making any money. Because every time you do one of those, your brain advances. It learns what worked, what didn't, and techniques to code or write things simpler and more straightforward and make them look good. You get better every step of the way. And I had an awful lot of steps going up to the early Apple computers. As a matter of fact, once a year for 5 years, I would have something that I had built just for fun, and I would do projects for people all over California. I got to work on the first hotel movie system. Wow, from a guy in Hollywood, But I would just do this for free. I was just known as a 21-year-old engineer at Hewlett-Packard that would do all this stuff for free for people. And once a year, Steve Jobs would come into town, see something I'd done, and every time he turned them into money. Because he had no money, fortunately. So he had to get money desperately. So he always wound up turning our stuff into money and then sharing it with me.
How then did Steve feel about you just giving your designs and plans free to other members of the club?
Actually, Steve came into town, And the movie sort of shows it like Steve got this idea, I'm going to start a computer company and come into town and take Woz to a club. No, I was a hero at the club and I took Steve Jobs down to see it. I had given out my plans for free. Apple doesn't even own the design of the Apple I computer. I'd given it out, I'd helped other people build their own because I wanted to help the social revolution happen. And Steve saw it, you know what he said? He said, we should start a company. You know, we've been a company for 5 years. We've been selling my stuff for 5 years. We should start a formal company with a company name. And it scared me a little because I worked for a company called Hewlett Packard, and they were going to come first, but they turned me down 5 times. And Steve said, let's build a board that helps people build your computer. A PC board, it's called. A little fiberglass board of connections, and they can plug the parts in and build your computer in 1 hour instead of 50 hours. And we build it for $20 and sell it for $40. And we'd have to put in some money. Neither of us had any savings accounts or rich relatives. I had to sell my most valuable possession, my Hewlett Packard calculator, for $500. So we pooled our money, and we'd have to sell 50 of these PC boards to break even. And we didn't think, we didn't know if we'd do it. But for once, the two of us, we've been best friends in this technology realm for ages. So the two of us would have a company of our own. Who could turn that down when you're young? What a chance. And Hewlett Packard turned me down over and over and over. So we were in business, and eventually it turned into real full computers, not just a $20 part. Steve knew parts really well. He had had a part-time job working for a discount, parts, I forget what you call these places that sell electronic parts, surplus stores. And he knew how to find a little switch that you could buy 100 of them for 6 cents each, and he could sell each one for $6. He was real good at selling and knowing how to get the money. So that was the start of Apple. And then once the computers kind of got popular and the press got on, and we had a really great one, the Apple II, and we raised money, now it was the big time. That was the time to write our story. And so we kind of made up a story. We hired an ad agency. They kind of made up a story about 2 guys with nothing in a garage. They didn't mention that our third partner had as much of the stock, and that the garage was never used for conceiving any products, for coming up with ideas, for building new things to test them out. All the garage was used for was about once a week for a few hours. We'd go pick up the computers from the place they were built, the computer boards, test them in the garage, put them in a box, and drive them to the store to get paid. So it was like there were never more than about 2 people in the garage either. It wasn't like a company, but they built up the image it was a company.
So, in language these folks would appreciate.
But it still was our front.
Well, your garage, in today's day and age, it sounds like it was a value-added DC operation.